For audition, when I hear certain songs, most songs actually, I no matter how long ago I heard them, I'm put back in the same headspace I was when I listened to them most frequently. So there was one time that I was into reading a certain book series, and I was riding the bus a lot, and so I would listen to um, "Crazy" by Gnarls Barkley, and I would think about the book series while I was writing, because I can't read while I'm writing. I get carsick. And now every time I hear that song, I'm reminded of that book series, and specifically of all the things that I was thinking about at the time, all of the thoughts that I had when I was reading that book series. And there's a lot of other examples of this with a lot of other songs. So that's one way in which I experience music. For smell, uh, it's the smell of cigars. Um, Whenever I smell cigars, I'm reminded of my dad. He smoked cigars, um, and so he would sometimes, whenever I was visiting him, he would he would pick me up from the mall, and he would make a stop by. He would make a stop by the cigar shop, and he didn't really smoke when I was around, but the smell of the cigars reminds me of when he would take me to go buy some cigars on his way from picking me up from the mall. And so whenever I smell cigars, I feel like it's not a smell that maybe most people even recognize because they're not super common. But my dad smoked cigars. And so there's a very, and I can they're very much distinct in my mind from cigarettes. They smell very different and evoke different feelings. For gustation, whenever I was in high school in particular, we would have these Highland milk cartons. And oftentimes they were partially frozen when we would get them, so there would be chunks of ice in them, which was par for the course for school meals. But at least one point, and maybe two or three times, according to other people, they we weren't 100% sure that they were spoiled, but they tasted spoiled. And so I took a big drink of milk, and it tasted like spoiled milk. And so suddenly I was like, I from that moment onwards, I never would drink those milk cartons from school again. And even now, I don't really like to drink. I'm hesitant to drink those milk cartons because of that association. Even though I know that if I buy them from anywhere else, they're probably not going to be spoiled, and they maybe weren't even spoiled when they were at my school. But the the memory of that is enough to ward me off from ever wanting to try them again. Um, for proprioception, I was. I remember I went to Disney World when I was much younger, when I was probably 11 or 12, with my family. And we rode one of the first major roller coasters that I had ever ridden, at Space Mountain. But it was terrifying to me because I was very scared of roller coasters at that time. And it was in Space Mountain is in a dark, enclosed environment, that's supposed to be like outer space. But that made it even more terrifying for me. So the entire first ride through, I closed my eyes and wouldn't open them for the entire ride. However, towards the end, I started feeling like maybe it wasn't so bad. And when the ride was over, I desperately wanted to go on it again. And so we went on it again because everyone else also wanted to go on it again. And the experience of riding the roller coaster with my eyes open, even when it was in the dark and it was hard to see, was just extraordinarily completely different from when it was closed. Um, like the feeling of spatial awareness was greatly modified by like me being able to see things around me. It was actually less scary the second time than it was the first time because I could see that nothing was happening, nothing was really scary about it, and I had a lot more fun. And that's what got me to the point where I am now, where I actually love roller coasters. And finally, a very recent example of attention grabbing. Um, I can be a pretty heavy sleeper, and sometimes I take naps, and I'm less heavy of a sleeper when I'm napping than otherwise. But I can still tune out a lot because my house is sometimes a noisy, chaotic place. But the other day, I was taking a nap shortly before I had to pick up my sisters from school, and my mom has an alarm set on her phone because she picks them up on other days as well. Um, and so I sort of knew that even though I was laying down and napping, I sort of knew in the back of my mind that I needed to go soon. And so I had sort of a sense of heightened awareness. And whenever, even though there was noise happening and my mom was watching TV and talking to my grandmother in the living room, and I could hear that from there, it wasn't, I was still able to fall asleep fully. But then I hear the faintest playing of her alarm ringtone from the other room, like this, but much quieter, and that fully immediately woke me up from my sleep. All of the other noise I was able to perfectly well sleep through, but this little tiny alarm that wasn't even on my phone or meant for me specifically woke me up, and I was like, "Oh, I have to get my sisters," um, which I think is a really interesting display of how you know select how sensitive you can be to certain stimuli and not to others based on what you were consciously and unconsciously paying attention to and listening for or looking for.